Oh hey everyone, this is Maria with Homeschooling Weekly, and this week's video is about unit studies. And I just wanted to make a quick video about this because this does not have to be complicated. If you go out on the internet, there's a lot of information about unit studies, and most of the time, at least I found as, a beginner homeschooler in the first few years, a lot of it was very intimidating because it would be piles and piles of these books and resources and all kinds of big activities. And really, I think if you just cut it down to a few essentials, you can easily do a unit study on anything and it not be this big huge expense, and it not be this big huge I don't even know the word for it, this big, huge expenditure of your time trying to set up something. Because the big pro of unit studies is obviously you can take whatever your child is extremely interested in and then use that to teach the different subjects. And I can promise you with just about anything in the world, you can apply all subjects to it. It's just a matter sometimes of getting a little creative. So here's an example of a unit study we did, and it was on Japan because my daughter absolutely loves Japan. She is very attracted to all things Japanese, and so she said she wants to learn about Japan. So when we look at kind of like the core subjects, that means, okay, so how are we going to get reading and writing and the English language arts out of it? How are we going to get math, science, and social studies? I would probably say are like the four main ones. And then maybe extra things like arts, crafts, if you want to do music, if you want to do technology or anything like that. So these were our, I would say, primary resources. Now, I got very lucky. I found this book. This is called All About Japan. It's stories, songs, crafts, and games for kids. And if you can find like a general book like this, start there. This book was really great because not only did it has like folklore storytelling in it. It also had like day in the life of different things for people in Japan. So we had, one really important thing with unit studies is when it comes to your reading material, I think it's important to include both fiction and nonfiction. Because the nonfiction, while very informative, sometimes doesn't really immerse one into the study of something, whereas more like when you get into your fiction or fairy tales or, just stories. Ooh. Uh, Sorry about the traffic noises, but when you get into your fiction stories, that helps you immerse a little bit more, especially if you have a student that is very much into more fictional stories. But this also had teaching how to use chopsticks. It contained food, and in here there were recipes, day in the lives of children. So that was really nice for my daughter to read, to compare her life growing up here in Canada as compared to a child growing up in Japan, which is great for social studies. So, and then we also had like just different arts and crafts, all kinds of great material that basically from this book we easily got our reading. We even got some exposure to poetry. We had writing in Japanese because she likes to see that. So we had basically our English arts and social studies very well covered in this. And like I said, mixed in with arts and crafts, there were even songs for festivals that we were able to look up and listen to. And this was just a really great all over. So when building a unit study, see if you can find something that's just like an all-round about the subject. And then for reading also, we used manga. My daughter, she loves the game Splatoon, which is made in Japan. And so for her personal reading, she read manga comics. And then for read aloud time, because she is also into video games, and there are a lot of video games made in Japan, and in fact, she's a huge fan of the Nintendo Switch. I found this book, What is Nintendo? And this book was awesome because it gave us like a history of the company Nintendo, which was, you know, a lot of exposure to the history of technology because it dates all the way back over 100 years ago. So we got to see the change of technology over the past century, which was really interesting, and read about a company in Japan. And yeah, it was just, this was social studies, this was technology, science, you know, it talks about all these kind of different things. So that was really great. And then outside of that, it was really just, you know, comparing Japan to Canada. And that was a unit study. For math, we used origami. That was a great craft that also brought in a lot of geometric talk, being able to use terms while actually making something, which, you know, the different triangles and angles and ways to fold paper in order to get a finished object was a great way to actually apply a math subject to something. So, and then you, like I said, music, you could look up music, you can watch films. We watch plenty of Studio Ghibli films. And yeah, it's just, these unit studies do not have to be complicated. As I said, like, this is more or less what we used, and we were able to cover Japan for a couple months, cover all subjects, and on top of it, she's still wanting to learn more. And I know that we, you know, probably have to move on from these. I will have to find more resources. But to get started, especially if you're unsure whether or not it's something that your child is going to spend a lot of time learning, because that's another intimidating thing about unit studies. Maybe your child tells you, hey, I want to learn about dinosaurs. And then you're like, okay, and you go out and you buy all this dinosaur stuff, and they're into it for a week. You know, start small. Just get a handful of books. They don't have to even be new. Go to your local library, check out a few books, and just get it going. And as the interest expands or declines, like, you know, return the books and move on to another subject, or go and get more. But yeah, I would say definitely with the unit studies, just trim it down to getting things like fiction and nonfiction. Have plenty of, especially if your child is a hands-on learner, hands-on projects. Like I said, we did origami, there were cooking recipes, there was even just sitting down and watching documentaries or information, listening to music, have those kind of interactive things. And especially, you know, this may vary for where people live, but if you can, with unit studies we do, since we live somewhere that has a lot of museums and places to actually visit on different subjects, I like to end big unit studies off with a trip to something that, if possible, like we did a unit study one year on ancient Egypt, and just so happens a local museum to us had an ancient Egyptian exhibit on. So that was a great way to like kind of bring it all together, was to go and visit somewhere. And right now that's still difficult in some places because of the pandemic and COVID and everything. But, you know, maybe find a virtual online tour of a museum that has a fantastic exhibit on the subject. So anyway, I hope that helps. I tried to keep this video quick, like I said, because unit studies do not have to be difficult. They don't have to be huge, complicated things. You know, maybe a unit study only lasts a week, and that's okay. And if it's going to last longer, you just grab the supplies you need as you go, and I think that works out really well. So if you have any questions about ideas for unit studies, leave them in the comments, or maybe share how you do unit studies if you do them, or if you don't do them, why you don't do them. Again, this is not the only way to teach. It's definitely not the only way to do things. I have just found that it's a really great way to approach home learning when you have a child that really learns best on their interest. So I hope you all have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching, and bye.